Okay, here's one final video for chapter 14 and Monopoly, where we're going to talk about shifts in the Monopoly graph. So you can already watch some videos talking about the shape of the Monopoly demand curve, how we put the costs into our Monopoly graph, and what the cost curves tell us. Now let's talk about, given that graph, what happens when we shift things around. There's a couple different shifts I could ask you to draw. I could ask you to draw demand going up, demand going down, costs going up, costs going down, or a special version of demand going down where demand gets droopy. There's some substitutes introduced, so demand gets lower and flatter, more elastic. So that is only happening in one specific case, which is when substitutes are introduced. And the reason we do it is because it's the graph for chapter 15, which we're going to do on Friday, and I just want you to see the link between what you already know how to do in chapter 14 and monopolistic competition in chapter 15. Okay, so an example would be let's say we're talking about Amazon's monopoly on Amazon Prime. Something that would increase the demand for Amazon Prime would be, let's say it's the holidays and everyone wants to get presents delivered in 2 days. All these procrastinators who've waited to buy family presents. Could also be something like they did a great job of marketing and got a celebrity people like to shill for Amazon Prime. Or it could be they developed great original content and everyone wants to watch a show that's only on Amazon Prime. Anything like that would make demand increase. Something that would make demand fall, well, I don't know, maybe there's a highly publicized incident of Amazon not delivering on their Prime promises, or maybe they start having 3-day delivery when it's supposed to be 2 days and people get upset and start complaining. Something that would make their costs go up. I don't know, gasoline is probably a big part of their shipping costs. So if gasoline prices go up, that would increase their shipping costs. That would make their cost curves rise. Something that would make their costs go down would be something like, let's say they can pay lower wages to their delivery drivers. They stop using the post service and they get their own delivery drivers that they can pay low wages to, or something like that. Something that would make demand flatter and more elastic is if there is a new substitute introduced. So this would be something like Walmart Prime. That was actually a functional website where you could buy Walmart products and subscribe to them. Or Target Prime, or some kind of online retail that can compete with all the services of Amazon Prime. Okay, so you've done this one in your group work. You've done costs changing on your homework. So let's do one we haven't really thought about, which is demand increasing. Let's think about what the holidays do for the demand for Amazon Prime, or Amazon coming out with new original content. So in our Monopoly graph, remember there's only one panel. This is the quantity of Amazon Prime members. That's their quantity in this market. And then dollars per unit over here, because we're going to have both cost and demand on this graph. Amazon is a price maker, not a price taker. So their demand curve is downward sloping. Their marginal revenue is twice as steep. Somebody asked me, why do I label these down here? That's just to make my graph a little bit neater so that I don't have to worry about labels getting in the way of showing shifts, because you probably know by now, but the Monopoly shift graph gets messy pretty quickly. The third thing we put in is marginal cost, because marginal cost tells us where the monopolist should produce. They still act according to the golden rule, which is setting marginal revenue equal to marginal cost to dictate their quantity. And they look at that quantity to the demand curve to tell them how much they can charge. That's where the monopoly price comes from. There's only one more element we need to have in here in order for this to be the long run equilibrium graph for a monopolist, where we want to start our shift from, and that's an average total cost curve. So I just try and draw one. That means that they're making a profit. There's a lot of places you could draw it so that average total cost is hitting quantity at less than the price. But you look at the quantity of the monopolist where that hits the average total cost curve right here. And that is their initial monopoly profit. So everything I have there in blue, that's the long run equilibrium graph for a monopoly. Remember, in perfect competition, we care a lot about where ATC is, and it can only be one particular place because they have to be making no profit in the long run. Every monopolist in the long run is probably making a positive profit box somewhere. Okay, so then we have something happen. The first thing that happens is that demand goes up. Let's say this is, they develop some good TV for the holiday season. And you need a Prime membership to watch it. So all of a sudden a bunch of people ask for Prime for Christmas or Hanukkah. Demand increases. You can just draw a parallel shift of the demand curve. At every price, the demand for Prime is higher. That means there's also going to be a parallel shift in marginal revenue, because marginal revenue is twice as steep. At every price, the marginal revenue is higher. You're taking our little gang sign and just shifting it up parallel to where it started. Right? We're not assuming anything is happening to elasticity or slope. We're just saying demand increased at every price. It could be any of the 6 things that can shift demand going back to chapter 3. Taste and preferences, price of a substitute, income, tax and subsidy, expectations, number of buyers, anything. Okay? Now let's think about how a monopolist reacts. Well, they still behave according to the golden rules. The first thing is to look for where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Marginal cost hasn't changed. So that is happening right here now. It has nothing to do with the minimum of ATC. It just happens to be happening at the exact same place. It's about marginal cost being equal to marginal revenue. So that is their new monopoly quantity. Okay? So after demand went up, the first thing that happened was the monopoly quantity went up. We found that from where marginal revenue was equal to marginal cost. Then we're going to look at that quantity to see what's happening to monopoly price. We plug that monopoly quantity into the demand curve, and the monopolist says, now that my demand is higher and it's more worth it to crank out more Prime subscriptions, I can also charge people more. Monopolist price will go up. Maybe instead of 100, if you subscribe to Prime over the holidays, it costs you 130. Now we'll talk maybe later on in class about why firms don't always raise their price, even if they could, because that kind of makes people mad if you're always bouncing the price around on them. Certain companies like Uber, who's known for their surge pricing, can do that. But if Amazon were charging you more for Prime over the holidays, people might get upset. But our model predicts that when demand rises, they will charge people more. And that came from plugging the monopoly quantity into the demand curve. Okay? The last thing to think about is profit of the monopolist. What's happened to profit? Well, in order to know profit, we're always going to use our same equation, no matter which market structure we're dealing with, quantity times P minus ATC. We know what the new price is, we just don't know what ATC is. Well, it happens to be coming from this place where the quantity hits the ATC curve, which is also where it's hitting the marginal cost curve. But it looks like the ATC is a tiny bit lower than it was before because we've moved to the right on the ATC curve. Smidge below where it was in blue. So that means our profit rectangle is P minus ATC. This is the vertical distance, the new price minus the new average total cost, multiplied by the quantity that they produce. So it's this whole thing. So you can shade it if you want to. You can draw the box around it and show me where it is. This is the new monopoly profit. You can see that the green box just ate the blue box, right? Profit went up. So when demand for a monopolist good goes up, they produce more, they charge more, and they make more money. Not very surprising, but don't have to memorize that. If the graph is your friend, it will tell you exactly what should happen. And if you go work for somebody with monopoly power one day, they will ask you to predict, hey, if demand does this, what do you think we should do to our quantity and our price, and what should we predict that our profit will do? So you would actually end up using this model in the workplace. Okay, hope that helps, guys. Let me know if you want to see other shifts later today at the review session, and good luck studying for exam 2.